Hello and welcome once again to another CasualCraft with me, your host RedRipz. And we're here today in the top left-hand corner of Neoplanet S with the blue Zerg player FAUST. FAUST? We'll go with FAUST. FAUST looks good. And in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the red Terran player, nucLeaR. Now, I think he was a random in the loading screen. That's why I was a little bit confused there. But yeah, he's a Terran player for the sake of this game. And obviously, initially, we will not be seeing anything particularly interesting straight away. Although a little bit of coding coming out of here from nucLeaR with his GLHFs. So yeah, this is my 5th recording now. I've actually just casted this replay, but it didn't record. So I'm basically having to do it again. So I actually kind of know what's going to happen here, but never mind. We'll go with it. It's fine. We're initially seeing straight away a double extractor trick here out of FAUST. Now I know what's happening here, and I don't really want to say straight away, but it is pretty exciting straight away out of this Zerg player here. So we're going to be seeing a double extractor trick straight up to 12 drones, and what is going on here? We're seeing the drone rush come out. He's going to be leaving 3 drones back at his base, and this should be completely ridiculous here. Now, the drone rush is not something that is done really because it's ridiculous. I mean, basically what he's done is he's taken his entire economy and used it to attack his opponent. And the funny thing is, his opponent, I think, will actually be spotting this as this SCV just kisses the drones on the way past, gives them all high fives. What up, guys? This kind of movement activity. Meanwhile, obviously, from nucLeaR, he's getting his barracks down right at the front line, so we'll have to see how the Zerg player does this now. And I can't believe I've just shown you how long the game was as well. Bloody hell, today is not the day for gaming for me. Now, this is the 5th cast I've done, so I'm getting there gradually. Hopefully the sound and picture and everything should be little bit more okay on this than it has been in the past. I'm especially hoping to stop mumbling here. We're going to be seeing some drones rushing straight in here. Now immediately we've got 9 drones out of the Zerg player and 14 SCVs. So initially the Terran player should just win this straight up. However, it does all depend on the micro. So a little bit of jumping and dancing backward and forward in and around the Terran's mining patch here. And we're not really going to be seeing much in the way of drones or things for it. And there we go. First one to fall is an SCV. So that's quite a good move for FAUST there. If I can get him back, that would be really, really good. Meanwhile, drones are starting to fall now for FAUST here. So Mr. nucLeaR is going to be... looks like he should be defending this pretty well. And a beautiful surround there out of nucLeaR. And FAUST drones are falling left, right and centre here. This is a real unfortunate shame. He hasn't managed to pull any of them out of this through the mineral walk trick. So yeah, that will be completely cleared up by nucLeaR, who asks promptly, why? Why do this? Do it in bronze but diamond? Why? So yeah, so he's got the Zerg player is bringing out his own brand of special tactics here for the Diamond League game that is this game. So now straight away, obviously we're seeing mules coming down. We're seeing Oval Command finish up as the barracks obviously has finished, and a full wall off is now completed for the Terran players. That'll be the last of the early pressure there for the Zerg player. It looks like we are seeing a spawning pool coming out straight away, who has re-droned his mineral line. Meanwhile, there is, if we just have a little look. The Terran player is 3 SCVs and a mule ahead at this stage, so that's quite a hefty economy advantage for the Terran at this stage of the game. Although now he's actually just going to give up all that and move out with all his SCVs all at once. So excellent. The Overlord will be falling here to this Marine, so that's the last of the scouting information there for FAUST. And nucLeaR will just be moving up the map with his SCVs. Oh my god, guys. Right. This isn't a common thing in Diamond League. I just want to make this clear. Typically, this is the sort of thing that is reserved just for the lower leagues. It's like, oh well, can't be arsed for the hell of it. I'll just grab all my workers and just move into my opponent's base. Accompanied by a good amount of micro, you might win 1 game in 10 if you're lucky. But, well, we'll see how this goes now. So nucLeaR has just pulled everything that he's got. He's going straight up. I think he probably left... No, he did leave a small amount of SCVs at home. It's not as bad as I made out. However, he's going to be attacking with 8, 9, 10, 12 SCVs here up against the massive amount of 14 drones and a spine crawler coming down. Obviously, with the pool finished up. Ling's morphing here and a queen on its way. This should be clean-upable for... Clean-upable? That's a new phrase, should be able to be cleaned up by FAUST here without too much bother, and indeed nucLeaR is going to accept this fact. He's going to pull back and try and deal with the Zerglings on their own merit with the help of 2 Marines here. The Marines are of course being supported by additional Marines who are making their way down the map now, as the SCVs once again move into the mineral line of FAUST for a brief bit of mining followed by some action, although the Spine Crawler and the Queen have now both finished up, so we should be seeing the rest of the attack played up without too much difficulty. The SCVs dying relatively swiftly here, and we're down to 6 SCVs now. 4, 5, yeah, they're all going to get cleaned up Not so good, not so good. Never mind. So it looks like the early pressures are over from both players. If early pressure is really what that counts as. And the end result essentially is that we've got 2 extra SCVs here for Faust and an extra mule for him, the same player there. Meanwhile, the Zerg player has extra lings up over the number of Marines that the Terran player has, so he should be able to quite happily take control of the map. Perhaps get some vision on the higher Zelnaga towers here, and then just sit outside the Terran base, making sure he's not doing anything silly, such as building a load of Marines and then moving in instantly, which is a tactic in a manner of speaking. So yeah, we'll be seeing a little bit of a frontline defence here. No second base from either player yet, although this isn't hardly really surprising considering the early stages of this game so far, which has been a complete riot, frankly. Seeing drones and SCVs pulled from each person's mineral lines to go and walk all the way across the map for a good little fight there. So now that we're back on even pegging again, Faust is going to just throw in some Zerglings there. He didn't really need them anyway. He's decided, obviously, just going to get rid of those at the ramp. That's quite unfortunate, to be honest, moving them up like that and losing them all. He could have got some quite nice scouting information there if he'd been able to get around this little force in some way. Meanwhile, we've seen a second base coming down here from nucLeaR. He should be able to finish this up on the low ground without too much difficulty, as long as he doesn't decide to move out too far across the map and lose his forces, which I feel is kind of inevitable, seeing as the number of Zerglings are moving up the map now across them here for Faust. Now they're going to go and take the high ground. I'd imagine they'd grab the Zelnaga watchtower, since neither player's bothered with that yet. Although the 2 Zelnagas on this map tend to actually be less useful than on most maps, surely because they're just out the way, so you don't have any central map control. So the fastest route across the map for an army is directly in the middle, so they don't control that. Which means that these towers are much more for sort of watching for drops and any flanking attacks and all that sort of thing. So they're not quite as necessary early game, because you tend to get much more upfront assaults in the early game as opposed to a more kind of delayed flanking assault. So we're going to be seeing the Terran bunkering up here now, and let's have a look, see if there's anything interesting coming out of the Zerg player. He's going to start getting Banelings from the Baneling nest he's built at the back. This is accompanied by Baneling Speed, which is all being scouted by the Terran's little SCVs sat at the back here. I think that's going to get cleaned up now by this Queen. And we'll see that. Yep, there goes the SCV, boom. And the first couple of Banelings are morphing here now in front of the Terran's natural. There is no force here now, actually, so the Terran will be able to be scouted by Faust here, who is just going to have a little poke up the ramp, not really be able to see very much, as the command center has been pulled back due to the fact that nucLeaR does know that there is some sort of thing incoming, probably by the amount of Zerglings and Banelings he's seen moving up the map here. So let's see if Faust can really push in. Now this number of troops should be enough to delay the second base, but it probably won't be enough to break down this wall now, unless of course, as we see here, nucLeaR has actually pulled down off the ramp, and this is a much more vulnerable position right now, until the bunkers get up anyway, and we'll perhaps get some more Widow Mines down at the front out of the factories here. He's going to be salvaging the bunkers at the back, sensibly enough. Although we're going to be seeing a second barracks come down now, and a tech lab. This will be for the upgrades like stim and combat shields for the Marines, and maybe even some Marauders to accompany them as well. It'll just very much depend on what the Zerg player goes, because if he goes for roaches and that sort of thing, then Marauders are really good. Whereas if not, you probably want Marines against Lings. Anyway, we'll see what happens here. The Widow Mines are going to be pulling back up the ramp actually, so he doesn't actually activate on the single Zerglings that are going to be coming up there. They're going to be gunned down long before they get in range of the Widow Mines, it seems, or at least long before they get in the activation times. So yeah, we've got a full bunker up now, nearly 2 full bunkers here for nucLeaR, so he should be able to defend this pretty easily, unless Faust decides to get a lot more Banelings anyway. He is actually instead going to try and attack up this side ramp. This means taking down these bricks, which actually takes a hilariously long period of time with Zerglings, as they do have quite a substantial amount of health for 0-0 Zerglings. Meanwhile, at the Terran, we're seeing a starport come down. We're getting reactors out on the barracks. We're also seeing an engineering bay. Oh wait, no, sorry, we're getting a reactor out on the Hellions on the factory to I'd imagine build some Hellions, possibly more Widow Mines, and we'll once again wait and see what the Terran player here decides to do. So nucLeaR is now starting to get out slightly more tech, I guess. Yeah, he's getting his factories down. He's building more Marines gradually, although it's not from the swiftest process, let's face it. And we should be seeing some sort of combat shield stim pack type thing coming out from him here soon too. Meanwhile, at the second base of the Zerg, we're getting a layer down. This is obviously for the second tier tech. This should allow him to move on from the roach one that he's building, unless he's of course planning to tech directly into roaches. I guess at this stage of the game, if he's picking up roaches now, he probably just wants to build a great big roach army. Maybe with some Baneling support or something like that, or possibly just to help defend for a bit while he gets out late game tech, or maybe, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see what he does. It much depends on the upgrades, really. You can often tell a lot about what a player's doing depending on the upgrades. And he's gone into, missile attacks. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of roaches out here. Maybe some hydras later and possibly some swarm hosts in the much later game. Although swarm hosts generally don't really seem to be that good against Terran. Surely because as soon as the wave dies, the Terran player just A moves out across the swarm hosts and scans them. And then laughs heartily as thousands and thousands of gases and minerals are completely wasted because basically the swarm hosts, for those who don't know, are burrowed in the ground so they can't be seen normally, but a Terran player can scan the area, which is actually what that noise is that you're seeing now over here. Yep, looks like this. Basically reveals any hidden units in the area, such as swarm hosts, which are burrowed in the ground, and just allows the Terran player to just walk over and kill them. So the Terran knows exactly what's going on in the main base of the Zerg player here, Faust, and he should be preparing for this now. The response that we're going to be seeing is an armory coming down, and this is normally now for Hellbats in Terran play, and we're seeing 2 further barracks and a second engineering bay with no extra factories yet. However, we are now seeing Stimpack and also Combat Shield coming down as well. Meanwhile, in the Zerg's base, we're seeing Glider reconstruction, so yeah, we're going to see speedy roaches and of course speedy banelings as well, and the first 5 roaches will be coming out before too long here for the oh sorry, we've got 4 out already, almost 6. For the Zerg player, who looks like he'll be going sort of ling bling roach for the moment. To be honest, if he's going to get that many lings and banelings out, I do kind of wish he'd get the melee upgrades, but never mind. We're going with roaches and imagine some later tech before too long. Meanwhile, the armory's just finishing up here for the Terran player, so we might well start seeing some Hellbats out of these soon. Meanwhile, his remaining barracks are finishing up, and we're getting infantry armor level 1. So there's some upgrades finally coming down from the Terran player here. I think he's just finished 1 attack as well. Yeah, he has done. Okay. So, meanwhile, we've got 2 bases down each. 3rd bases are coming down now. He has built a planetary fortress here, nucLeaR. And actually, both players have taken the 3rds down on the low ground here behind the rocks, which can be more defensive, but typically you often see people taking this as a 3rd base instead, or in case of the Terran, this base. Mostly because you can sit in one place here. Like if you siege up a bunch of siege tanks there, you can pretty much sit here and defend both bases, especially against Zerg players who have very little in the way of air until they start getting the mass muta out. After which point you just build a bunch of turrets, and that pretty much deals with that. With regard to how much damage they can do. And we're seeing a lot of banelings coming out now here for the Zerg player, so I'll be guessing we're going to see some sort of attack pretty soon. This is way too many for it to be merely defensive, so I'd imagine that will be moving out before too long. Meanwhile, we're seeing the 3rd base populated now from the Zerg player as it has finally finished up, and the 3rd from the Terran is pretty much complete. Now, building a planetary fortress on this base is interesting. It's usually you build PFs to defend run-bys, so when a bunch of Zerglings run in and try and kill all your workers off. So the PF can quite happily deal with those. And we're seeing an engagement here now, and all the banelings are going to be coming right in towards the Terran player now. Are we going to see any kind of connection here on these? And this is really telling here for the Terran player. If he can micro around this, then he's really doing his thing. And no, unfortunately, gosh, most of his army's just straight up fallen there. There's really not been that much. He did get 1 medevac's worth of troops out, I think. Yep. That's 8 Marines out, but everything else pretty much has died. The PF should be the one clearing up most of this here, though, however, as most of the SCVs should be surviving. Well, actually, most of them died to the banelings in the end, it seems. And we've got a bunch of roaches left, although those will be falling now, as they probably won't be able to take down the PF on their own. Although, actually, to be honest, I think he probably could have just hung in there and finished it. Although it's very difficult to sort of call either way at this point, especially when you've got that few roaches left and this many troops attacking them. It really could go either way. So meanwhile, we're going to be seeing more and more roaches coming up from the Zerg player. We're also seeing ground carapace coming up and infantry weapons level 2 from the Terran player. More widow mines and additional queens, obviously, at the 3rd base of the Zerg player. This is getting into a fairly standard macro game now here, really. We're just seeing all sorts of upgrades. We've got groove spines out, which means we've got hydras incoming. This should be basically the constitution, the makeup of the Zerg's army for the next 10-15 minutes at least, I'd imagine, would be Roach Hydra as the composition. Now, really, to make that work better, he needs a lot more creep spread because you've got to be able to get those units into position quickly, especially the Hydras, as they're so squishy. So they really need to get into position quickly so they can start doing as much damage as possible, which I guess is why you get the ranged upgrade, but at the same time, creep spread, really important for a Zerg player. Especially in non-mirror matchups, obviously. So once again, we're seeing a whole bunch of banelings coming down here. Now, we've still not seen any sort of melee upgrade, I don't think. No, we're getting 2 attack now, and 1 defense is literally just finishing up for the Zerg player. Meanwhile, the Terran is getting his drilling claws for his widow mines, and shall be, I guess, holding this middle position here. So if he holds this ground here, he should be able to watch both this side and this side to see if anything's coming in, and then take a fourth pretty safely behind that. It does very much depend on what his plan is at this stage, though, and he is getting more and more upgrades and stuff, so I'd imagine he's just going to sit and macro up until he's got some sort of full-size 200 cap army. Oh, excuse me. Meanwhile, FAUST is going to be continuing to build more roaches and hydras. Oh, actually, no, he's stopped roach production now. He's just building hydras. Shit ton of overlords coming out here. I guess he's just wanting to get to the maximum supply. Meanwhile, we're getting 2 attack finishing up and hopefully 2 defense before too long. Although we're seeing a massive amount of creep spread here for what seems to be no apparent reason. Meanwhile, 4th base has now come down for the Zerg player FAUST, and he should be populating that before too long. So let's see what happens in this attack then as nucLeaR moves in and buries his Widow Mines directly in front of the Zerg army, and that's cleverly just off the edge of creeps. You really don't want to engage Zergs on the creep if you can avoid it. However, he has just ran on the creep and lost everything to Banelings. That was... wow, yeah, that wasn't so good. I guess he wasn't looking, because that is really, really unfortunate there for nucLeaR. Although he has remained ahead on supply, most of the, well, 10 of that at least is in SCVs. So yeah, there really isn't that much going on at the moment for him, especially as FAUST has just stuck down an extra 12 roaches here to come out. His infestation pit, meanwhile, is just finishing up. Now we can, off this, we should be able to tell which direction he's going. Whether he's going to go into swarm hosts off with the enduring locusts, or whether he's going to go for infestors by taking the pathogen glands upgrade. Usually one or the other, just for the lack of gas to build both. Now we're going to see the FAUST moving in here now, and this actually doesn't look too good, to be honest. He's split his army quite badly. The Terran has a really good concave on him here with 2 sieged up siege tanks, and also a full concave from his army, as well as a lot of medivacs there healing up, and that's really just going to just deflect the entirety of the Zerg's army away. There really wasn't much to be gained there from moving in there, which is really unfortunate for FAUST after he won that victory before with a massive amount of Banelings. He's very much thrown it away there in that respect. The advantage that he had gained. Meanwhile, his 4th base is finished up. He should be populating that now. The Terran, meanwhile, he's building a 4th, and he's flying a 4th and building a 5th over here. We're not going to see these Widow Mines clear up the Zergling, although the Marauder there will be killing that off. We've got Zelnaga Watchtowers now, both taken by the Zerg player, so he kind of has map control, although doesn't really, because he doesn't have any units sat trying to keep the Terran in his base or anything like that. So it's kind of risky in some respects, although the Terran is pretty able to push out at this stage, since he's got quite a substantial force of medivacs with Marines and Marauders backed up by siege tanks, which obviously if they can get sieged up and in a good position, it's really, really difficult as Zerg players to push in anywhere. Meanwhile, FAUST will be pushing round to the south-west end and changing his mind about that. Not very happy about it. Coming in to defend this drop in the 4th, which is going to be cleared up straight away. We're not even going to really see any sort of damage out of that. That just explodes. Meanwhile, nucLeaR is going to be pushing up and taking out the rocks on the 3rd base of FAUST. This should allow him to push in pretty nicely, although it does look like he might be caught out of position here by this massive army of FAUST as he pushes in across the map. And ooh, that was some good connections there on the Widow Mines, although no actual kills, I don't believe. And there's the next set of explosions from the siege tanks. We're now seeing the siege tanks fall very, very easily. And obviously with the Overseer over the top, we should see the Widow Mines falling very quickly as well. This is really, really unfortunate for nucLeaR here. He hasn't really managed to do anything much in the way of damage to FAUST's 3rd base here. Basically everything there is just going to be cleared up. We're going to see 1 medivac escape here as the other one gets picked off, with a massive amount of 2 Marines and a Marauder sat in it. So yeah, not a very successful push there for FAUST. It was a nice try. I could see what he was going for. He essentially was trying to, some sort of pincer movement where he essentially was trying to get a drop in this 4th base here, so that FAUST would pull his army across and then he could move into the 3rd. However, he wasn't quick enough about the move in and had the drop cleared up way too quickly for any effect. Meanwhile, FAUST is going to be just moving into this once again here, and we'll be seeing how this fares against the siege tank and the massive amount of healing he's got going on. But with this kind of wide concave and not really enough troops to be healed, it's very, very positive here for FAUST, who should be able to push in here on this extra command centre and probably even on this PF if he can get lucky there. Although it depends quite how long it is before the response from nucLeaR turns up as to whether or not he can actually take that down. Although it does have a massive army supply lead. It's most of it's in the roaches and things that are coming out now. So we'll be seeing this PF fall, and that will be probably the end of FAUST's army as well. I would imagine this army of the Terran can clear it up. They are on their 2-3 now compared to the 2-2 advantage, and we do have medivac support as well. So plus tanks as well. So really that should, yeah, that's the last of FAUST's army being cleared up there. No bother whatsoever. We'll just build another one, says the Zerg player. Meanwhile, nucLeaR, he's on his way with more medivacs. He's got his siege tanks out. We're looking at... We've got full upgrades now, so he's on full 3-3 advantage there. We've got more and more medivacs, loads of Marauders and Marines coming out. We're seeing more tanks, more and more barracks. and everything's looking pretty peachy. Main base has mined out now though, and the same thing's going on in FAUST main base, so these players will both be looking to take an extra base before too long, I would imagine, as the second bases shouldn't really last too much longer than this. I mean, these patches are all running pretty dry compared to what they started off with. Now we will be seeing some drones falling here, although not a great deal in this drop, as the FAUST does move in to just clean it up. Not really much going on there in that respect. FAUST is actually doing a really good job of defending all these drops. He's losing bits here and there, but nothing too major. He's pretty much managing to hold a lot of the Terran's multi-pronged attacks in that respect, although actually recently he's just been dropping single things, so I guess we'll see how that goes. Now, obviously with the Terran pulling back here, FAUST does have a chance to pull his army forward a bit and perhaps try and put some pressure on the Terran, who doesn't really have a lot in the way of anything at the moment. I mean, he's got 25 Marines hanging around, but like, he kind of needs to group them all together with everything split up like that, and this massive ball of Zerg coming across the map towards him. nucLeaR is really going to struggle to straight up defend this unless he can get his troops balled together. However, it does look like FAUST has given him enough time to do just that, so we won't be seeing too much of an advantage here from FAUST anymore, as nucLeaR has now equalled out the supply. We have 2 siege tanks down, we have nearly a page of Marines and a bunch of Marauders down. This should be pretty evenly matched. A lot of it depends on whether the siege tanks can get properly sieged up, and it does look like the FAUST will be basically flanking nucLeaR here and just getting a massive advantage by taking out half his army before the battle's even really begun for nucLeaR there. That's a real problem, especially since he's now moving away into the fourth base once again of nucLeaR. Although FAUST is now supply blocked, and he won't actually be able to take this down as there's so much healing from this massive amount of SCVs, and it does look like with a bit of medivac support, this 3-3 army might well be able to Veil. I'm not sure which way this is going to go, although it does look like the Zerg is going to be falling now unless the SCVs come in and clear this up. Yeah, absolutely, there we are. That's the last of the Zerg army being cleared out there, although not actually being killed, just being told to sod off basically, as the Terran army moves out the way with the support of the SCVs. Now continued production, we're seeing more and more Hydralisks coming out, and FAUST is very much refusing to move away from this technology here, and we should really, well, it's interesting to see when we'll be seeing some later game tech. He does on the other hand have his hive out now, so we might be seeing some late game stuff coming up before too long. Although with the continued production of roaches, he's really stalling the late game tech here. Similarly, nucLeaR hasn't really moved on from the tier 2 stuff. I mean, yeah, he's got his starport out now, but we've not even seen any Vikings out, never mind other things. And there's a lot of SCVs here still doing absolutely sweet FA. This supply advantage that he's appeared to have for a long period of the game, it's actually just been wrapped up in these SCVs that are sat here doing absolutely nothing. And they could very easily be sat in one of these other bases getting their mine on. So so anyway, in the middle of the map now, we've got FAUST moving out. He's now got some Vipers out. These are excellent units against Terran. You can pull the siege tanks out of position beautifully and just pick them off one at a time instead of having to engage properly. And then even then after that, you can pull medivacs and things out of the way. Just any sort of weak units that are really integral to the way the Terran army performs. If you just pull them out, you then leave this ball of Marine Marauder that's considerably weaker to the one that you had standing before it. However, he's not actually going to do that. He's just going to use Blinding Cloud all over this army, which is really effective against Terran. And however, the siege tanks are going to sit there still. And once that Blinding Cloud wears off, they should be able to clean this up, as this bunch of Marauders at the bottom just simply is not going to be dying here. Meanwhile, we're going to be sacrificing some of these Vipers, it looks like. Yep, there we go. There's some of the Vipers starting to fall now as they've decided to move in directly on top of the Terran army for whatever the hell the reason that was. Meanwhile, we've got an entire 3 Hydras left and a few Roaches, although there are more Roaches coming out now for FAUST. He is a little bit behind on supply now, although we have seen the clearing up of the Terran's main now with regard to SCVs, so that should be a lot of a problem. Although he does have 36 SCVs on this this third base of his, so that could really be done with being sorted out, to be honest, especially when you've got an entire other base down here on the far left hand side for nucLeaR, completely unmining, although it is fresh, I guess. And yep, now we're seeing the transfer over. That's good. Good stuff. He still has a few too many SCVs on this site, although he does need to take this extra gas at some point as well, so that'll be very useful for him. Meanwhile, we've now finally got some infestors coming out, along with the help of pathogen glands. This is quite a positive move, as the pathogen glands basically gives you infestors a bunch of extra energy when they spawn. However, he has actually started the infestors a little bit too early to benefit from pathogen glands on these initial 4. Meanwhile, we're getting Spire coming down as well, so it does look like we'll be getting some air out of FAUST at some point soon. This is good to see some later game tech now coming out of him, as the Roach Hydra is starting to drop off a bit. especially against this sort of combined Terran army, especially with the Widow Mines. You can stick them along the front, leave the siege tanks just behind, and then walk the Marines and Marauders in and out. Like some sort of idiot trap, really. They kind of... Oh, had a medivac grab there. Yeah, they basically you bait units onto your Widow Mines and then blow them up with your siege tanks. Seems to be the most effective way to deal with players as a Terran when they've got a large amount of ground units like this that are really weak to AoE. Okay, so we're seeing the two Evo chambers in the middle of the map here being utilised for more energy on the Vipers. They can of course absorb energy by destroying the health of a building that you own, I think it is. I don't think you can use it on opponents' buildings. They basically gain a lot of energy, so it means you can just re-energise them all day. Although I'm not sure, I'm not sure if you can actually kill the buildings. Not sure. However, meanwhile, FAUST does have a fifth base down now, which he will be starting to populate with drones. I don't imagine he'll continue building drones. He's got 72 already. So he should be, yeah, here we go. I might get some transfers across from... Main is completely mined out. The second base is almost mined out, and the third is halfway there. Meanwhile, for the Terran player, obviously he's mined out his main. His second's completely gone. Third is looking half healthy, so he's got 2.5 mining bases at the moment compared to FAUST, who is sat on 1, 2, 2 and 3. Yeah, call it 3 for good measure. So yeah, FAUST still does have a slight economical advantage in that sense, in that he's got more stuff available to him to mine, which just suggests to me that the Terran player might have actually exhausted a lot more resources than we realised. Just have a quick look at the units killed tab. They are pretty even in terms of units killed, although workers killed, FAUST is well ahead, although he has been pretty much at the start of the game. This is a very, very difficult position for FAUST actually, as the attack comes in here, and we're seeing blinding clouds coming down on top of the Terran army along with fungal growths, and this absolutely goes through Marines. Fungal growths, especially once they've stimmed, if you get a fungal growth on top of a bunch of Marines, it only takes one more to get through the rest of them. So that should be very much the end of those Marines, although the siege tanks, as weak as people seem to think siege tanks are, siege tanks, once you get them down in position, if you start getting the shots off, they just go through Zerg. There just really isn't any fighting with it. Meanwhile, we've seen a drop here in the fourth base, of FAUST. nucLeaR has completely taken that base out, and he will be getting rid of these Evo chambers in the middle of the map, I'd imagine. Nope, just going to be moving out generally. It is grouped as part of his actual main army, so they're all just regrouping now, I feel, off creep. And trying not to get engagement on there anymore. So meanwhile, out of the Zerg player, we're seeing a 6th base come down now, despite him losing his 4th. This is right next to where the Terran, I think, is intending to build his base, as nucLeaR has just put down a command centre right next to that. I'd imagine that'll be flying over there on completion. So he's going to get a nasty shock when he discovers a fully built hatchery sat right there. Meanwhile, get another base down over on the far left-hand side here for FAUST. This should help him regain his economy, although at the moment he is down to just one properly mining base. Well, 1.5, excuse me, which is really not a particularly good position, especially when you're on 161 supply against a maxed out 200 Terran army, which is absolutely dire. Especially, no, he's actually got more CVs again now, the Terran, so it's not all in army supply. If you built a bunch of command centers and started dropping mules, then perhaps, but for now he is just going to be pushing out onto the Zerg's creep, and I'd imagine clearing that out with the help of some scans. Meanwhile, the fungal growths are going to be clearing out the Terran's units here that try and move in, and we're going to be seeing engagement. Oh, not quite here, as the Corruptors do gradually take down the Viper. Meanwhile, we're seeing more roaches coming out once again from the Zerg player. This is basically just roaches. And the Infestors will be sat here with very little energy on them. We're not really seeing that much out of FAUST here, to be honest. As while he has pushed the attack off by some miracle, it really isn't looking good for him at this stage of the game, I'll be quite honest. He's only got one remaining mining base, although his 4th base has respawned again now, so we might start seeing more mining there soon, we'd hope, if he's in control of what's going on. Meanwhile, Terran has completely started mining out these other bases as well now. He's got 2 mining bases, 1.5 mining bases really, because God, he's got through that one really quick. All these patches are running dry as well, so the Terran will be down to just 1 mining base soon if he can't come and build this gap up here. Meanwhile, FAUST will be moving to the very bottom of the map, and we're seeing some poking from both players, but it's not really going to be going either way at any particular point soon, I don't think. It does look like that nucLeaR will be coming up to defend this base, as FAUST does push down the ramp onto the 6th base now with the Terran player here, and this should be quite a successful attack initially if he can just get his troops in there in time and kill off the SCVs before too much damage is done by the planetary fortress. However, FAUST will be pulling back and is instead choosing to, I imagine, engage the Terran army. We'll be seeing now as the engagement comes in from the Terran player here, and his Widow Mines haven't yet been burrowed, although both siege tanks are sieged up at the back here, and there's even infested Terrans coming down out of the Investors here, which isn't really the best move. You've only got one Infestor with very little energy left on it. You really want to be saving those fungal growths because they do so much damage compared to what the Infested Terrans can do now. And it does look like Faust will be cleaned up here by nucLeaR as the last of his Hydras fall to these incredibly tough Marauders here. And they won't even escape past the Widow Mines at this rate if he keeps being slowed by that by the concussive shells. Meanwhile, in the base up here, it does look like we have cleared this out from nucLeaR here. I didn't actually see what happened there. Oh yeah, no, sorry, the small amount of Marines and Marauders there. Just cleared up that extra base. And we've got an evolution chamber down on top of the creek to block nucLeaR's 6th base again. So that's quite a nice move from Faust there. It's a bit cheeky, I like it. It's exactly the sort of delaying tactics he's going to need if he's going to get back into this game, because he's so far behind on supply now after losing this base time and time again. Meanwhile, Terran player, Mr. nucLeaR, the red Terran here in his fiery colours, is going to be regrouping, getting his troops together, and I'd imagine before too long we'll be seeing some sort of move out from him. Meanwhile, the Zerg player is trying to go and clear up this base once again, although it does look like he's going to really struggle to do that. The sheer number of Terran forces here, with 80 supply difference now, this is really looking dire for Faust, as nucLeaR does push out and claim this base back once again. And even the Vikings now have air control. It really is a difficult time. This base, if this falls, Faust is out of the game. I can't see how we can continue to maintain this, especially when we're getting extra bases on all corners of the map now from nucLeaR. Every single base has now been occupied by both players, well, either or players. However, unfortunately for Faust, only one of those bases is his that is mining. The other one, this is still a mining base, I guess. And we are seeing the Terran player move in now to try and deal with this, although he's just going to be poking in and out, trying to draw the Zerg player onto his Widow Mines every time he attacks the hatchery, although Faust isn't actually going to be moved to defend this, and the hatchery just falls completely without contest. This allows the Terran to move in and siege up his tanks behind when Faust moves in to try and combat this, and of course all of Faust's troops are just going to be dying now. We're seeing the Man of Mules coming down from nucLeaR, and it does look like Faust will be losing this game with nucLeaR going nicely ahead after taking so many bases and defending the middle of the map really nicely with his siege tanks. We've got 3 Broodlords out, I believe, at this stage of the game, although it's way too late for anything like that now, as Faust has fallen down to 50 supply and nucLeaR is racing ahead. Meanwhile, there's yet another drop here in the 4th base of Faust, and it's looking really dire for the player. I can't see at this stage how he could possibly win the game, especially when he's trying to expand to bases that have already been taken. With a lot of drones. Meanwhile, the Terran will be moving his mass medivac over the map. I'd imagine to get on top of this army before too long. Essentially, everything's going wrong here for the Zerg player. He's got absolutely no mining bases left. All that's left is his tech. He doesn't really have any units left. If we have a look here, there's 1 Zergling and 10 Roaches versus a massive force of 24 Marines, 17 Marauders, 5 siege tanks, and a bunch of air. And the GG is called. Well, that was a bizarre game, to say the very least. The starting off with SCV and Pro Brushes from both players. I didn't expect such a fiery opening from such a blue, chilled Zerg player such as Faust here, but he's gone straight across the map to try and kill off nucLeaR's base with very little success. And then nucLeaR, of course, in the interests of fairness, followed it up with an SCV rush of his own that didn't really do much damage either. However, both players were fairly equally delayed by the initial move out, and it actually led to quite a nice macro game in the long run. So yeah, that's episode 5 of CasualCraft, another one done. Hopefully it recorded properly this time, and I will see you guys next time. Like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed what I'm doing. Any and all comments are thoroughly appreciated, because, well, I don't really have that much of a clue what I'm doing, let's be honest. So we'll just go with it here. We'll just go with it. But yeah, thanks once again for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. Hope you enjoy the new titles and music. I'm getting there. Hopefully you can hear what I'm saying this time, as I've actually tried to clear up the audio quality a little bit. And GG, well played to both players.